Those of you that have been with the channel for a little bit know that we've been enjoying the Sig P320 and P365 interchangeability, their fire control unit concept, and being able to swap things out. Not long ago we did the P320X Compact in its basic form. Now we've got an Icarus Precision grip module on it and the Romeo 1 Pro red dot, waiting for a few other parts before we take this thing out and see just how far we can push that gun. In this box is a really cool concept that's going to use parts of that gun. This is the M17 P320 X-Change, which costs a whole lot less than an M17 and can be delivered right to your doorstep. Tabletop review and field strip as we take a look at this and build an M17, coming up next on GBGuns. Both Ms. Tia and I are Army veterans. We both served during the Beretta 92 days, the M9. So the M17 is new to us. This was announced a couple years back, of course, as the Army swapped over to a different pistol. And of course, they wanted a modular setup, and that's exactly what the P320 is. In this kit, for, I don't want to throw numbers on YouTube lest the nannies think I'm trying to sell things, but let's just say for less money than the sum of the parts combined, and for less money than the cost of a full M17, you can turn your regular 320 into an M17. We've got our grip module with the magazine release already installed and a flush fit magazine. Two of these 21 rounders with the extended base plate, and up top, our completed slide. This is pretty cool. I want to show you a little bit more about this. But first, let me build an M17. There we go. Unfortunately, even though it's not constructing a firearm, YouTube freaks out about those things. So you'll just have to check your manual or watch one of the videos of a channel who doesn't care so much about staying on YouTube and has posted it. Swapping out the fire control unit is very simple. I've covered it in other videos before. All I did was take the fire control unit out of that X Compact and drop it in here. And now we've got ourselves an M17. I did notice, just a point of humor, that dark smudge right there is exactly where the dark smudge was on another grip module that I'd ordered from Sig in the past. I guess that's just where they decided to smudge things. Or maybe this was handled by the same guy that did put the packaging on the other one. Before we get into the gun, I'm going to give it a standard tabletop. Now it is slightly different because it has the X-style straight trigger from X Compact, so I don't have a regular curved trigger, but I don't mind, and I don't suppose you will either. I was flipping through the manual, which is beefy, as you can see. It's for the M17 and M18, and if we have any veterans in the audience, get ready to roll. Right there, Preventative Maintenance Checks and Services, PMCS, and it's got the before, during, and after chart of things that you should be watching and paying attention to on your equipment. It's laid out a little bit prettier than the old Army manuals that I remember, probably because it's on this glossy paper and everything, but it is very, I'd say, in-depth. It gives you quite a bit of details about the firearm, more so, I think, than the standard manual, the manual that comes in P320s. So that was kind of cool, and it gave me a bit of a chuckle, because yes, this is the Army's new sidearm, and man, Sig, you made this manual very much like an Army TM. Though the firearm, the legal firearm, remains the same as the gun I've already done, I want to give it the old standard GBGuns treatment, which always starts off, of course, with checking for how the magazine releases. With the slide open, we flip it over, then we get a kick to aid in ejection of the magazine, which is nice. You also notice that it's got a relief cut down here, so you can grab if you don't know how to do a Type 3 and you panic and try to strip the mag out. So, very cool there. The controls, of course, work on both sides because that's from the old firearm, but what I noticed is there's some nice fencing here around the slide lock and release lever. That's something that the X Compact did not have, And when I first started shooting the X Compact, that's something I had an issue with, in that my thumb had bumped the slide lock and engaged it. And obviously I still can, even with that fencing, but it's nice that there's a little bit of an attempt there. Starting at the front of the gun, this is a 4.7 inch barrel, so it looks quite a bit beefier than the 3.6 we had on. A little bit of beveling up front to make holstering easier. And then it's a PVD coating in cheap milk chocolate. And then we've got too much milk in the coffee for the color of the grip module. At least that's how I describe them. I noticed, we've talked about this before, the gap above the barrel there. Now that permits, of course, for the barrel to do some tilting without contacting the slide because it's a Browning action. But SIGs just seem to have a bigger opening. That's just a point of interest. We have our tritium sights, night sights on there. And it is pre-cut for a Romeo 1 Pro. This is the older style that SIG was doing, where you have to remove the screws from the bottom of the slide to get in there. We've got front side serrations that are at a bit of an angle to be grippy. I can slip if I want to, but if I really want to grip it, it grips, at least currently with dry, reasonably clean hands. Plenty of rail space underneath, texturing on the front of the trigger guard. A little bit of hook there for those that like to use a support hand up there to hold on. Not going to talk trigger because it's the same trigger, exact physical same thing that was in the X Compact already did. I also noticed a difference down here in how the trigger guard is shaped. So if I bring in the X Compact, it looks thinner from here. It's actually the same thickness, but this has more beveling to it, whereas the M17 is a little more squared off. If this were aluminum, I'd say, okay, that's less machining to help save time, but this is plastic squirted into a mold, so it's just a simpler mold. I also noticed that we do not have the same relief here for the middle finger as on the X series. And SIG's, of course, laser stippling, that real fine sandpaper-like texture all the way around. Underneath, not much magwell beveling, if you will, but it does have heel to be able to kick the mag and slam in like that, which is what I like to do. Our slide to frame fit up front, where we've got all that leverage. I can feel a little bit of movement, but not much. Definitely has some up and down. In the back, we've got side to side and up and down. That amount of play, does it affect accuracy? Well, only if you're not looking at the sights, because the sights are moving with it. So let's say it's off by a slight thousandth of a degree for your next shot. Well, line up your sights. It's obviously the sights in the barrel are remaining aligned just fine. I don't worry about that play. I just look at it as a means of how much crud can get in there and there still be room for this thing to operate. On the right side of the gun, we've got our magazine release is reversible, but not truly ambidextrous. That's a universal trait of the 320s. But we do have our slide stop and release. I kind of dig the black, dark brown, light tan. What do you guys think? Next, let's field strip this thing and take a look inside the M17. The M17 field strips just like every other P320. We're going to lock the slide in the rear, make sure it's clear, rotate this lever down, can be stiff at times, and bring the slide right off. No need to pull the trigger. Inside, of course, is our fire control unit, or FCU. That's the part that's actually legally the firearm on these, and it's how I was able to swap from my X Carry to my X Compact to an M17 so easily. All you gotta do is pull this pin out and then bring the chassis out, the FCU out. It's pretty cool. So what's actually new, however, is the slide on this. And this PVD color, I'm really digging. I'm liking it. I'd like to hear what you guys think about it. Our spring. Why is that not one? There we go. It was a little caught in there. It is a captured flat coil spring on a polymer guide rod. I'll update that when I can. And then Popping down on our barrel, it unlocks it to bring it out. Now you can see inside the slide. Interesting lightning cut there and in there. Now one thing that makes this different is it does have a loaded chamber indicator. This little bit pops up with around in the chamber. That is not on the other 320s that we've dealt with. I don't know if that was a military requirement or not. It's been some years since I read the requirements for that. Barrel, nicely coated. About your standard feed ramp. I'll grab a match round and we'll check for chamber support, as always done with our nozzler. And when we're checking for chamber support, what we're looking for first is we're listening for the clunk when it drops in. Sounded good. You can hear it had some room to kind of bounce around on the way in. The round spins freely. And then as far as actual support, you're looking at how much brass past that shoulder there is exposed. Usually under the feed ramp is where we have exposure. If it's not fully supported, this to me appears to be fully supported, which is good since a military barrel and military gun would be running more likely than not NATO ammunition, which is 10% higher pressure than the standard 115 range stuff you and I shoot. And if you have a case rupture, wherever it's not supported is where it's going to blow out. Reassembly, just a reverse of the field strip we just did. Have noticed on, at least on my X-Compact, that the tail end of the recoil assembly is not round, and it's got to be skinny enough to fit and for the gun to go back together properly. This one is round, at least it seems. Round on all sides, which I find interesting. I wonder if that means it's going to reassemble easier. Slide it to the back, knock it open, flip your lever back, and let it go, and the gun is now ready. So the M17 being a 4.7 inch barrel, we're getting a beyond standard ballistics on 9mm and 17 round mag, giving full grip. This should be a comfy shooter. The contours on the grip are not as advanced as, say, the Icarus Precision or even the X models. But I'm curious to give this a try. Also curious to hear Miss Tia's thoughts, since she and I, as I said, both shot the M9 in the Army. This is what the kids have now. Let's see how it does. When we get out to the range, you'll get our cold shots, absolute first shot impressions. We've got our trademark What's for Dinner test. We'll do a full mag +1 with the 17 rounder, see how it runs that way. Then we've got, of course, our spinner for sights and trigger control. The trigger we already know. These specific sights we've already used, but not on a radius this long, so that should be nice. Practical accuracy, and then we'll give you our concluding thoughts. Since this has been out for quite some time, I'm sure more than a few of you already have an M17 of your own. If so, let me know your thoughts, experiences, what you wanted to change, or why you've left it the same. Thanks for watching.